A huge update on Stone Cold Steve Austin's WrestleMania 38 status as the challenge has been laid out to appear, not wrestle, at WrestleMania 38. Plus, we have the Raw Tag Team Championships changing hands last night on Monday Night Raw, an injury to Becky Lynch, and updates to matches being added to specific nights of WrestleMania 38. All this and more in today's WWE News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking about the show closer from Monday Night Raw last night, and that is the challenge laid out by Kevin Owens to Stone Cold Steve Austin, but not to wrestle yet. WWE Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin has been challenged to appear at WrestleMania 38. Now, it's been noted over the course of the last, month or so, 5-6 weeks, that Austin has been rumored to be coming out of retirement for a match against Kevin Owens at WrestleMania 38. This goes with Kevin Owens every single week saying how much he hates Texas, Dallas, Texas, and being on WrestleMania is important, but he doesn't want to wrestle in Texas, all that kind of stuff. Well, last night's Monday Night Raw closed with Kevin Owens in the ring, continuing his recent promos against the great state of Texas and the people who live there. Now, Owens said he wants to have the biggest, most stupendous edition of the KO show in the history of WWE at WrestleMania. But because of where WrestleMania is being held this year, he knows his guest has to be, quote, some lowlife from Texas. Owens then took shots at WWE Hall of Famers JBL, Booker T, and Shawn Michaels, noting that Michaels can't be on his guest on the KO show because as a proud Canadian, it would be sacrilegious and disrespectful to WWE Hall of Famer Bret Hart. I very much enjoyed that line. I did quite a lot. Now, Owens began taking shots at other WWE legends, pointing to his bad knees and how he's probably somewhere drinking beer like the redneck he is, building up to Steve Austin. Owens then said that nothing would make him happier than to beat the hell out of this person in their home state, give him a stunner the world would talk about for years, and then pour a glass of milk over his lifeless body. Owens said he knows this person is watching, but he thinks the person doesn't have the guts to show up. Owens then finally named the man Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Cleveland crowd popped as Owens dropped the mic. Now, the Raw announcers then flashed a graphic for the KO show with Owens and his guests, but with a question mark next to Stone Cold Steve Austin's name. The segment has been announced for Night 1 of WrestleMania 38, or as they're calling it, WrestleMania Saturday. Now, at the moment, it's a KO show, a talk show segment, and Steve Austin's done a few of these throughout WrestleMania history. I think back to WrestleMania 21 when he was on Piper's Pit in Hollywood, California, in Los Angeles, California, when WrestleMania went Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. Now, Austin hasn't wrestled an actual match since his loss to The Rock at WrestleMania 19 in 2003. He's made several appearances since then, of course, including some where he delivered stunners to a specific superstar. He did have a physical confrontation, shall we say, at WrestleMania 32 back in 2016, where he stunned the members of the League of Nations and Xavier Woods. But he hasn't wrestled since 2003. Of course, he was forced to retire from in-ring competition due to a serious neck injury and multiple knee injuries. And of course, there have been this rumors that he was going to wrestle a match. As of right now, it's a talk show segment. Now, when it comes to him responding to this, WWE has announced that Stone Cold Steve Austin will respond to Kevin Owens' WrestleMania 38 invitation at 12 p.m. Eastern Time today. Now, WWE has announced that WWE Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin will be responding to Kevin Owens' WrestleMania 38 invitation at 12 p.m. Eastern Time today on Tuesday. Now, I'm assuming he's going to say, I'm going to show up. I think what we're getting here, and this was always my kind of thought process, I really could not wrap my head around the fact that Steve Austin would be wrestling a match at WrestleMania. After years and years and years of offers, bear in mind you have to remember, Stone Cold Steve Austin retired or was forced into retirement from in-ring competition at 38 years old. He was in the prime of his career when he was forced to retire in 2003. And since then, he has had a multitude of big money match offers from WWE. He's had matches rumored to be against Hulk Hogan. He's had matches rumored to be against John Cena. He's had matches rumored to be against CM Punk. of all of those things, he's always turned them down because he's always said, I don't know if I'd be able to live up to expectations. I don't want to get hurt. I had to retire for a reason. I don't think that I'd be able to do a good job. And I left in the right way. It took such a long time for me to get the business out of me. All that kind of stuff. I wouldn't want to risk all of that. It's best left to the imagination, right? Dream matches should be left to dreams. We've kind of come to realize that over the course of the last 5 years or so, for some of these legends coming back and not living up to expectation. So I couldn't wrap my head around. I couldn't wrap my head around the thought of, after turning down, because they were put to him, after turning down those matches against the likes of CM Punk, against the likes of Hulk Hogan and John Cena, and all of those names throughout the years, why would he come back? No disrespect, because I'm a big Kevin Owens fan, but why would he come back for a match against Kevin Owens that isn't the main event of WrestleMania? It's just a match on WrestleMania Saturday on night one. That to me made no sense. This makes more sense, and I'm not saying there won't be a match. I'm not. I'm saying there will be a match in the same way The Rock had a match with Eric Rowan at WrestleMania 32 in 2016. That's what I think we'll see. We will see, we'll see, Steve Austin will say, yeah, you know what, maybe today he'll say, I'm not going to be there. Maybe he'll say, no, I'm not going to show up. And everyone's like, oh, what's going on? He's not going to show up. Why isn't Steve Austin going to show up? All that kind of stuff. And then the next couple of weeks on television, Kevin Owens keeps driving home that point. You're a coward. You're a coward. He's not going to show up. Steve Austin isn't going to show up. I hate Texas. I hate Steve Austin. He didn't show up. I put the offer out there and he said no, blah, blah, blah. He will do that for the next few weeks. And then what will happen, I think, is on the night of WrestleMania Saturday, on night one, there'll be the KO show. Kevin Owens will be there. He'll keep running down people and all that kind of stuff. And maybe those people he referenced, Booker T, Shawn Michaels, JBL, will all come out. Maybe they'll all get physical with him. And then what happens? Suddenly, maybe Adam Pearce or whoever comes out and says, no, you know what, Kevin Owens, you did want a match. You really wanted a match at WrestleMania. And guess what? You're going to get it. Boom, glass hits, out comes Steve Austin in his wrestling gear, in his trunks and his boots with his leather vest, and it's literally just 30 seconds maybe. Steve Austin stunner, 1, 2, 3. That's Steve Austin's final match that closes his career in his home state in front of 100,000 people, and that's what the match is. I think that's what we're going to see. Because frankly, as I've mentioned several times before, if Stone Cold Steve Austin, bear in mind he's 58 at this point, he's nearly in his 60s, but that doesn't mean anything nowadays. Could look at Sting. Sting at the age of nearly 63 is diving off balconies through tables, so anything's possible, obviously, but if Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to come back and wrestle one more match, if he feels I have one more match left in me, it makes zero business sense, in my opinion, zero business sense for him just to come out and be one of the matches on night one of WrestleMania. If he feels he has one proper match, not a match like this where it's the bell ring, stunner, 1, 2, 3, that's different. If he feels he has one more 20-minute, 15-minute match left in him, WWE should announce that 1 year ahead of time, promote it, and it should be against Roman Reigns, and that should be the WrestleMania main event, and that will get you 100,000 people. Because that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's one of, if not the biggest draw in WWE history. That's how big of a deal he is. So again, I think the direction we're going is the direction that makes the most sense. Either it's just a KO show, or it's a KO show that turns into a match, and then Steve Austin hits a stunner, 1, 2, 3, and that's the final match of his career in his home state, and that does make a bit of sense. And I think that's the way we're going. But Steve Austin's going to reply at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 5 p.m. British time today. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll do a quick video once Steve Austin makes his announcement as well, so keep an eye out for that. Speaking of Raw last night as well, we saw the Raw Tag Team Championships change hands. Not surprisingly, but Randy Orton and Riddle are your new Raw Tag Team Champions. Last night's Raw from Cleveland opened with RK Bro becoming the new champions by winning a triple threat match over Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and the former champions Alpha Academy. The finish saw Riddle get the pin on Chad Gable after stealing it from Rollins in a wild sequence. Randy Orton and Riddle cut a post-match promo together on how they are now going to WrestleMania 38 together. Orton said he's been doing this for 20 years and he's never had so much fun as he's having with Riddle right now. He said he's never used the F word before, but he can use it with Riddle now because Riddle is his only friend here in WWE. Now, of course, this is the second title reign for RK Bro. Of course, Gable and Otis began their title reign back on January 10 by defeating Orton and Riddle. I tell you what, it's essentially the opening hour of the show last night, that match, and it was great. I mean, the crowd, you have to give credit, because especially nowadays, sometimes these WWE crowds can be very lukewarm at best. I mean, they pipe in so much noise, you would never know, but... Well, you wouldn't know because the piping in noise is obvious. But that crowd in Cleveland was red hot, and in fairness for them, the match was awesome. The match was such a great match. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was tremendous. Orton was just so over. I mean, the crowd was going crazy. There's a point in the match where Orton gets a hot tag, and they're just going insane. They absolutely loved Randy Orton, and he is just... He's been doing this for over 20 years and he's still unbelievable. They did a point in the match where Gable does the moonsault and Orton turned it into an RKO. It was just brilliant. It absolutely was brilliant. The one thing I would say with it is, now that who are they defending those against at WrestleMania? Realistically, who are they going to defend it against? Because the way that Orton was just so happy with the victory almost seems suspect, I guess. But my only thing would be, if they're going to split him up and have a match at WrestleMania, they've not given themselves, in my opinion, enough time, because Randy Orton would essentially have to turn on him, next week? And then have a match at WrestleMania a couple of weeks after. I mean, the build would be so short. And because of the amount of time that's gone into this one, and because of how over they are, and the merch and all that kind of stuff, for me... the turn has to be its own thing on Raw. It has to be given plenty of time, and the match shouldn't get lost in the shuffle at WrestleMania, I think. It should be a really big featured match of a pay-per-view. So I don't think they're going to probably turn on each other before Orton, because Orton's going to be on to do the turn. I don't think Orton's going to turn on Riddle just yet. But who they defend them against at WrestleMania? I have no idea. If it's the Alpha Academy, it's kind of a case of we've seen that quite a few times, so why would you do that again? But nevertheless, I thought the match was awesome. A really great match, and they spent a couple of weeks building to this one, and they were right to, because it was tremendous. I suppose they could go against the Street Profits, since the Street Profits did technically beat them last week, even though they weren't meant to because of the Randy Orton injury thing. But it's going to be interesting to see who they do go up against at WrestleMania. Becky Lynch was not at Raw last night, and she is reportedly dealing with a legitimate injury. Now, she took to Instagram yesterday evening and announced that she would be missing Raw due to Bianca Belair damaging her voice box during the main event of Sunday's WWE live event in Allentown, which saw Lynch retain her title over Belair and Rhea Ripley. She posted a photo from what appeared to be a hospital room, but did not elaborate. Now, in an update, PW Insider is reporting that Lynch is legitimately hurt and is expected to be out of action for around 2 weeks. As long as Lynch is back in the expected time frame, she'll be able to make her WrestleMania 38 match against Belair, which of course takes place during night one of the big event on Saturday, April 2nd. Now, while Lynch stated that she would not be at Raw, she was currently backstage at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland. There is no word yet on if the fracture of the voice box is legitimate or if it's just a storyline excuse for another issue. Nevertheless, Becky Lynch was not at Raw last night and is reportedly dealing with an injury. Hopefully she'll be fine. It looks like she is going to be fine. I think even if she's 50-50 and it's touch and go, she'll wrestle. It's WrestleMania, so they're going to have the match anyway, and she's going to put Bianca Belair over. And fortunately, with WrestleMania, I suppose, if you do pick up something on the way to WrestleMania and it's a couple of weeks out, you just sort of grit your teeth and get through it, and then after Mania you can take some time off. I don't think she'll probably be off of television or anything like that, but she probably won't be working as much after Mania. Again, we don't know if it's legitimately the voice box. We don't know if it's any other injury, but she was not at Raw last night, and hopefully it doesn't lead to something bigger on the road to WrestleMania at all. Speaking of WrestleMania, we have a date for Edge versus AJ Styles. Edge versus AJ Styles is now official for Night 2 of WrestleMania 38, or WrestleMania Sunday, as they're calling it. Of course, Styles versus Edge was confirmed during last week's Raw, and AJ accepted the open challenge, and Edge turned heel on him. Of course, Edge was on Raw last night and delivered a dark promo. WWE also confirmed the match for WrestleMania Sunday. This one doesn't really need a lot of build. Obviously I'm very excited for the match. The turn did seem a bit strange last week for me and a bit forced. But the match, but I don't really care because the match is going to be great anyway, so it doesn't really matter, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. But it was a bit strange of the turn last week, no doubt about that. And finally, there's a change to the women's tag team title match at WrestleMania because last night's Raw saw Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley defeat the women's tag team champions Carmella and Queen Zelina Vega. in a non-title match. Per the stipulation, Morgan and Ripley have now been added to the WrestleMania match to make it a triple threat because they picked up the win on Raw. The match will now feature Morgan and Ripley versus Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Carmella and Vega. WWE has also confirmed the triple threat match for Night 2 of WrestleMania 38 or WrestleMania Sunday. Look, I like the people in the match, obviously. I'm a fan of Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan. Obviously, Sasha Banks speaks for herself, Naomi. But it means nothing. I mean, it just means absolutely nothing. And as always with WWE and tag team wrestling, look at these are 3 tag teams that are singles people that have just been shoehorned together. You're a tag team now. Why? Because we are. Because we are. There's no tag team name, there's no tag team entrance, there's no tag team moves, there's no tag team gear. It's just Frankenstein tag teams. But that's because the women's tag team division means nothing. From the very moment they created the bouts, it means absolutely nothing. I'm sure they'll have a fine match, but it doesn't mean all that much, does it? Nevertheless, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365. As I mentioned, once we get the Stone Cold Steve Austin reply, I'll upload a short video later today. But before then, I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.